Okay, good morning, and we are here with Brandon Silver for the weekly construction question time. Good morning, Brandon.
Morning, Julie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely sunny weather outside today, which always makes us feel better about everything. So today's question that you will be explaining the answer to is, what are the differences between contracts executed under seal and under hand?
Yeah, so thank you, Julie, for that introduction. So today I'm going to talk about contracts executed under seal, which is also known as deeds, and contracts executed under hand, which is also known as simple contracts. Now, hopefully you'll recall in my last vlog when I was speaking about patent and latent defects that I was actually talking about limitation periods and the differing limitation periods depending on whether you're bringing a claim under a simple contract or under a deed. Now, the limitation for bringing a claim under a simple contract is 6 years from the date on which the cause of action has accrued, and for a deed, it's 12 years. Now, that's the main difference, and one of the most important differences between a simple contract and a contract executed under seal, so a deed. Now, what I'm going to look at today in this vlog is some of the other differences between a simple contract and a deed, and to actually help you guys listening in today on actually how to identify the contract. Is it a deed or is it just a simple contract? So the first difference is that for a deed, it must be written, but for a simple contract, it can be entered into orally. So that's one of the main first differences. The second difference is that when it is a deed, the document must make it clear that it is intended to be a deed. Now, what this most commonly is presented is that in a document, just before the signature section, there will be some kind of wording which says this document is intended to be a deed. So that's a requirement for a deed, but that requirement is not necessary for a simple contract for obvious reasons. The third difference is that for a simple contract to be valid, there must be consideration. So consideration typically in construction contracts would be that there is a price, and in exchange for that price, you're offering services or completing certain works or something like that. So that would be the consideration, and that would make the simple contract valid. For a deed, however, for it to be valid, it does not need consideration. So no consideration is necessary for a deed. So that's another difference between the two. Now, obviously, I've just mentioned a minute ago that one of the formalities for a deed is that it must make clear that it is intended to be a deed. Now, another formality with deeds, which is not something that is needed for a simple contract, is that a deed must be validly executed as a deed. So what does this mean? Well, there are certain execution formalities that must be met when the document is a deed, and the execution formalities differs depending on the legal personality of the executing party. So what I mean by this as legal personality, if the executing party is an individual or it's a company, or for example, it's an LLP, there are different formalities that have to be met when executing the document for it to be a valid deed. So just looking at this in a bit more detail, let's say, for example, the executing party is a company, and the company elects to execute the document by one director. Now, what the execution formalities for this require is that the director must sign the document in the presence of a witness, and that witness must attest it, so must also sign the document as well, saying that they've witnessed it. So that's one of the formalities that is required for a deed. Now, looking at a simple contract, it would just need to be signed by the parties if it is written down. Obviously, as I mentioned, it could be oral, but if it's written, then it just needs to be signed by the parties. So those are the main differences between deeds and simple contracts. And for obvious reasons, by getting a greater period to bring your claim of 12 years for a deed, of course, there is more requirements that you have to meet than just a simple contract, which is for 6 years. So if you have any questions in relation to limitation periods, your contract, and whether it is a deed or just a simple contract, or any other questions relating to this, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you for listening.
That's great. Thanks, Brandon. I learn something every week. So thank you for the explanation there.
Great.
We will see you again next week.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Julia.
Have a great week. Take care.
Thank you.